to say that black boys are being spoiled by their mothers and not treated like men should be treated, whereas black girls are being forced to be independent and grown up is ridiculous. That's not what's happening. What's happening is black boys are severely neglected. Black boys are not properly supervised. Some black boys have to deal with domestic violence in their homes, neglect, mistreatment, and trauma. And so basically what you do, you are charging up their emotions and then you're releasing them to the world. Here's the other thing. When a black boy gets 16 or 17, he's basically considered a man in his mother's house for all intents and purposes. She treats him like she treats a grown man. She treats him probably like she treated his father. And that young boy is not mentally developed or physically developed or even equipped to deal with that type of onslaught from a grown woman. Apparently, maybe the father isn't either, and that's why he's not present in the home either. But the bottom line is to try to shift blame onto these innocent children for the failings of their parent is just irresponsible. And for publications like Madame Noir to publish that is yellow journalism. It's a cop-out. Let me tell you, growing up in the inner city, and I'm someone who was raised in South Central Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s. This is during the heyday of the drug epidemic and the gang violence epidemic. All the stuff that these rap songs are made out of or made about, that was where I grew up. And I can tell you, even though I had a large family and I had an active group of uncles and other folks, I too was neglected. Largely because my mom, just like the rest of you all's mom, came out, the rest of these people's mom, sought their independence. The 60s had arose. They were no longer bound by the social stigmas. Segregation was lifted, so black people were able to move around the city and go different places, and they wanted to enjoy themselves. They came from the 60s revolution, a sexual revolution, so children had popped up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that parents probably weren't prepared to have. You had the burgeoning single mother issue, and so it was new on the scene. And it's that point where those habits form. Couple that with some women and men also who were former there as societal pillars were cracked out on drugs. So they weren't able to even be there. So the neighborhood was going down. Work was difficult to find. And so now where are we? Now you got kids running around in the street. You got mom at the job and she's not able to come home until late at night. So the kids are basically being neglected. And so where do they form their social values? Where do they learn? They learn from television. They learn from their friends. So they pick up the same information that their friends are learning, and you don't know what's going on in that friend's house. You don't know if that boy has been abused. You don't know what he's seen his mom do. You don't know what he's seen his sister do. So he's developing his opinions on life and his opinions of what's right and what's wrong based on what he's seeing in this ultraviolet environment. And and I'm referring to the big city. If you want to go places like Louisiana and Shreveport and New Orleans and Mississippi and these country places, it was just as bad, the mindset in these country towns, as it was in some of these city places, because crack hit all of that. And so now here we are 40 years later, and you're telling me we went from being an endangered species as young black boys dealing with the same stuff that they're dealing with now, but you're trying to reclassify this and say, no, we're spoiling these boys. That's the problem. We're spoiling them and we're not making them men. No, what you're doing is you're maintaining them. You're feeding them. You're buying them a new pair of Jordans every 6 months when they come out, but you're not raising your sons. Unfortunately, you have not taught your sons the things they need to deal with the world, and then you put them out when they become a financial liability into the world. Whereas on the other hand, your daughter, because she is a black person and because she is a woman, is considered a double minority. And on top of that, and I hate to say it like this, but family, they much rather deal with black women than black men. Do you think that they would like me in their office, a 6'4" black man, strong, brawny, muscular, in that office with those beautiful young white women? I doubt it. Now, I understand that we're supposed to be professional, but I doubt it. I think they would much rather have a black woman in their offices so that they don't have the issue that comes about when you have another man in the office. I get it. I understand. This is not something that's new. It's the reason why they kept the black men out in the fields and they had the women, for the most part, other than maybe an old man who drove the horse and buggy, in the slave house. That's why we do that. It's human nature. I understand it. But for you all in the black community to now support this publication, it's ridiculous. It's a cop-out. And the reason I say it's a cop-out because it shifts blame away from the people who are responsible, and that's the parents. There's been a societal neglect of young black males, period. It's always been, the boys have always been sacrificed, even right after emancipation, right after Reconstruction. Black boys were forced to stay in the fields and work. Maybe they got a third grade education at best, but they were forced to work in the fields. The black girls, they were sent off to teacher college. They were sent off to learn some sort of job so they can get out of the fields. We've always sacrificed black boys and black men. We don't mind throwing black men in front of the tanks. We tell black men, oh yeah, black power. You go out there and get shot, beating your fist against a brick wall, or running up on these police officers in their AR-15s. Yeah, you go out there, and then we'll reap all the benefits. And this is just this is ridiculous. It's a bunch of crap. I'm offended that somebody like Michelle Obama and now Madame Noir's publication would get on here and say that black boys are spoiled in the face of all the evidence. They're spoiled. That's why they're ending up in jail. That's a big jump, right? How about the laws are skewed in favor of putting them in prison? How about when we create the criminal justice system, we have to, now we have a system, we have to feed that system, and it's fed typically with black bodies. And if there aren't enough black bodies, they'll put brown bodies in there. But for the most part, it's black men filling up those prison cells, earning money. They use black men as the face of crime so they can scare up the population and get more funding from Congress to buy more prisons. It's a system. It's so bad that you have private systems. It's a business. They have private prison systems on the stock market, and they're doing well. So let's just chill with this nonsense that black boys are being spoiled. They're not. They're being neglected. They're being mistreated. They're being, nobody's paying any attention to them. They're forced to raise themselves. They're left out on their own merits to figure out life for themselves. And then when they get old enough and they begin to look and appear like men, their mothers typically put them out. With no training, no skill set, no education, they're just put out in the streets and left to their own devices. And what do? They click up with their friends and they learn whatever the business trade is on that side of town. That's what they begin to do, which eventually ends them up or leads them to prison. And if they like women, which they most likely will, their girlfriend is going to put pressure on them to be a man and get out there and make money any kind of way you can. And Lord forbid she gets pregnant. Now it's more pressure. And he's not getting any sympathy from her because she's dealing with things on her own, i.e. pregnancy and dealing with a child. So she's putting pressure on him. And now what do you have? Now you got this young brother medicating himself with marijuana, alcohol, and who knows what else. But you're saying black boys are spoiled. That's why they're going to jail, right? Not because there's an insurmountable number of traps for them to fall into in this system. That's why they're not that reason. No, it's because their mother bought them too many pair of Michael Jordan shoes and polo shirts when they were young. Yeah, that's the reason. That makes about as much sense as a pink elephant flying across the sky. That's just a Disneyland fairy tale. It's nonsense. There's too much statistical data that proves the exact opposite. Black boys are neglected. They're not taught anything. You don't even teach your son manners. You don't even teach them to say thank you and please. You don't even teach your boys nobody's reading to their sons at night. Nobody's doing that. And it takes a black man who grew up in a situation similar to that to tell you. So before Michelle Obama or those people at Madame Noor begin to say that, oh, yeah, this is because black boys are spoiled, how about taking a survey? How about you talk to the black men that I talk to on a daily basis who can tell you the horror stories that they had to endure growing up in their households? Let them tell you about the mistreatment and the neglect. Let them tell you how they had to watch their mom and aunties and watch men come in and out the house and what that did to their psyche and their thoughts about women. Let them tell you about how their mother used to call them all sorts of derogatory names that would put a Ku Klux Klan member to shame. If you heard them side by side. Let these boys tell you about how their mothers basically neglected them. They were the last thing that they really were concerned about. And even if they did maintain them, they weren't raising them. Buying your son clothes, buying your son a video game, buying him shoes that he wants, that's not raising your children. That's not raising your black sons. That's maintaining them. There's a big difference between raising them and maintaining them. If you have a computer in your house and it doesn't have the proper programming in it, it's just sitting in a spot being maintained. You got the electricity on, you dust it off every now and then, you make sure it's clean, but it's not doing what it's not being properly programmed. It's not until you buy that operating system and then you begin to put that operating system in that you begin to program your computer. And then when you use it and you test it and you make sure it works, then you should have confidence that when you need it to work and when you need it to do what it's supposed to do, it will. That's the difference between maintaining and raising. That's the difference between having a computer at your house and putting that computer to good use. That's the difference. Or having it be ready so that you can. It's no different than black boys. Just having a little boy at the house, you dress them up like they just pretty and you think somebody's going to, you treat them like a lot of people treat their boys, especially their black boys, like they're little girls. You dress them up. You think buying them a fancy belt and a nice wallet and a little watch with a little gold chain on that you got from some flea market makes him a man. And then reality hits. You, as a parent, there's nothing I can do with this boy. This boy's 6'4", 200-something pounds. He's like a grown man in my house. I can't have another man in the house because there's a grown man in here looking at him. They eyeballing each other. They might fight. Well, I'm not going to get rid of my man because my man is helping me pay rent. Who am I going to get rid of? So the mothers make a financial decision. They get rid of the young boy. They put pressure on him to get out. They start cussing him out, calling him names, treating him bad. And so what does he want to do? He wants to leave because that's the intended effect. It's the same thing mother animals do in the wild. They start biting their young. They run them off so that she can be free to get back to her life. I get it. I understand. But if that's the case, let's say that's what it is. Let's not say it's because you spoil these boys. Let's not say that. Anybody with eyes can see who's running around in the street at night. Anybody with eyes who can see who's filling up these jail cells, who's filling up these morgues. It's not because you're spoiling them. You definitely aren't spoiling them with love and attention and affection and praise. You might be spoiling them with clothes, whatever you can afford, but you're not spoiling them with those sort of things. You're not spoiling them with ideas. You're not helping feed their ambitions. You're not teaching them what they should expect in life. That's not spoiling them. That's at all. You just got them there. You had them, you got them there. Maybe you in a relationship with the man didn't work out. He's just there. You got him there. I get it. But let's not lie about it. Let's not put words to paper and mislead because we don't want to take responsibility for what we have done. It's not that child's fault that he is here on this planet. It's because two human beings, a man and a woman, got together, had intercourse, and somebody decided that they wanted to take that baby to term and birth him out. That's what happened. And so it's not that that child had no decision as to be here. And a lot of you parents, you think that you should have a balance between your own life and raising your children. And I'm here to tell you, as a parent of 3 boys, you don't have that option once you have children. Becoming a parent is the most important job that you can do. Is more important than the job you get with your master's degree. It's more important than the job you get right out of college. It's the most important job that you have, and you should donate and dedicate all of your time and energy to raising your children. However many you have, by however many people you have, you should donate your money. They should be right up under housing and food and communication and clothing. Should be, what can I do to better my children's lives? Because once they're grown, they're gone. And as my grandmother used to say, they'll be on your mind when you're young, and they'll be on your heart when you're older. So I promise you, if you care anything about your children, if you care about their future, you would disregard these silly statements made by Michelle Obama, our former First Lady, and Madame Noir magazine. It's ridiculous. But what you can do is next time you see a little black boy, knowing what he's going to have to endure, you make sure you say something positive to him and not something superficial. Like, oh, you got a nice haircut. Oh, those are a nice pair of shoes. Ask that young man, what does he want to be when he grows up? How does he plan on getting there? What is his life like now? Tell him some sort of inspirational story about another black man that looked like him or came from where he came from. That's what parenting is about. And some parents are horrible. And so we need some surrogate parents. And you don't have to have the child in your house, but saying a kind word to a young black man goes a long way. And if you can give a little bit back, then give a little bit back. I'm not asking